What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Yes, if someone's upset or angry, they're telling you two things. One, what they're saying is important to them, rather obvious, but we tend not to validate the importance. So one of the things, I have these three questions to end conflict, and the first one is, I can tell this is important. What is it you want me to know? Because they're also telling you they don't think you want to hear this. They're assuming resistance on your part. It may not be personal. They may think that about everybody.
Right. But sometimes we're a catalyst to that intensity because they get intense.
Oh, and then our emotional wave hits us, right. And then we go, no, that's not true. Try to head them off at the pass. And part of the problem is if they make the decision that we don't understand, then they also decide nothing we have to say is relevant.
Yeah, we don't understand, so we don't care.
Even worse, or don't love in personal relationships.
That's right. Those two things go together, don't they?
Absolutely. And a lot of times people just want to be understood. But sometimes as leaders and partners in personal relationships, we think when they're coming at us with some emotion, it's a demand for us to do something. And then we start dealing with that. When a lot of times, I can tell this is important. What do you want me to know? And then, is there anything else? And is that all? I want them to tell me that I understand, because that means they're telling themselves that I understand. That means they don't have to defend it anymore. Then I can ask questions about, what else have you considered, and what are you wanting for me to do? And a lot of times they don't want me to do anything. I'm like, great, cool, anything else?
Yeah, it reminds me, and I've talked about her often. Susan worked for me for like 14, 15 years, my number one producer that I ever worked with, produced higher sales than anybody in my career. If I could have cloned her, you and I would not be talking right now, by the way. But she ran into a situation with a client. She came up to me one day and she started telling me about what went in, what happened and what the client said, and they were upset. And I jumped into
fix it mode.
Oh, yeah. So, next time, this probably was said, and I remember we had enough of a relationship. She invaded my space. She came up and put her hand right in the middle of my chest, and she said, I really don't need an answer right now. Sometimes I simply need to be heard.
Good for her.
And she walked out the room. And
that's great.
I'd like to tell you that I've never done that since then.
It's a habit.
It is.
We can learn to clean it up. Oh, wait a minute, I don't like how I handled that. We can come back 8 hours or days later, and I don't like how I handled that. Could you give me a do-over and let me come at that?
And that is such a strong statement you just said, as opposed to saying, I'm sorry. Because I'm sorry has a tendency to not have any sort of ownership that goes with it. And
it's also not about doing something corrective.
That's it. So I apologize is stronger, but what you just said is something that I've just started really trying to get into my vernacular more, is like, I could have handled that better. I could have done that better.
See, that's being vulnerable too, and builds trust.
Yeah. Huge along those lines. But a lot of power, a lot of impact.
It's also great modeling, because it's what you'd want a report to do.
Yeah, in that area. So if you look at this, with this great, turmoil we're midterms on elections, and there's just a lot of strife that's going on in our country. Well, let me broaden that. The call I was on just before that, I'd introduced you to a client of mine, was in South Africa, and guess what? We're not the only one who's dealing with economic uncertainty. And even though we were talking about that, the market, even though we're in post-COVID, it's not that it's gone away, but the economic impact of it is not crippling us. Okay, and
I don't know. We're having moving in recessions. The stock market's dropped 20%.
And here's also the thing: is like there's more discussion on, is there going to be a recession? How deep is the recession?
That's true.
Living in the present.
Yeah.
And that's what you talked about. We have a tendency, what's going to happen? Because, our desire is to, if we can figure out what's going to take place, then we want it to be better.
Rather than panic about the stock market going down, it's like, this is a great time to buy stocks.
That's it. I mean, there's opportunities right now, and that's the
find the upside of the downtime. It's always there.
Yeah.
And stress is evidence of us not doing it.
Yeah, because you know what the reason I wanted you to throw the book up at first, you know what you really could have retitled the book? You could have retitled the book with one word: hope. Okay. You could have done that. And the reason why is because that's what we chase. And as a leader, our role is to create an atmosphere of hope. I just visited NASA, for the first time in, I don't know, probably 30 years. It took somebody from out of town to go visit it. And I'm really caught up with the space program, and because I grew up at the time when Kennedy made a statement, and we're first astronauts, and I'm fascinated by the potential of that it offered. But Apollo 13, if you look at Gene Kranz, who was the flight director, I still remember reading about that. They're looking at these three guys in a spaceship that's hundreds of thousands of miles away, and he comes about and he says, whoa, failure is not an option.
Failure is not an option.
Okay, and as a matter of fact, his book that I bought, okay, his autobiography, that's the title of it.
Yes, and in Star Trek, it's resistance is futile.
Resistance is futile, But
resistance to change is futile.
It's futile. And so if you look at this, okay, the essence of all that is that a leader has to create and keep focus on hope. And that's why when there's stormy situations that are going on, the job is to kind of.
Yeah, and the practical application of that is to focus on the unrealized goal. Because I agree with you about hope, but a lot of people hear it as fanciful thinking.
No. I'm glad you clarified that, because that's hope,
not the practical movement towards a better situation.
Yeah, because see, hope is not a strategy.
Right.
But without hope.
Yeah, you have to have the sense that we can move from our worry to the goal.
That's right.
And that's what our job is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people's job is figuring out stuff they didn't know before. And that's a talent and a skill that's learnable and can be developed. And again, you have to learn to deal with that emotional wave that hits us in order to clarity of thought about what is the goal and what steps can we take and how do we get people aligned towards that.
Yeah,
and
so
that's the job of leadership.
Yeah, is there a process that you've learned to coach people on about how to, how to bring clarity, how to be able to kind of, I call it, bleed the negative energy out so that they can be able to process things better.
Yeah, it's called the cycle of creativity. And let me pull it up here on my computer. Interesting. There we go. My Zoom thing is hiding it.
I know. It disappears on us sometimes.
Well, because they got so many things open, like my mind.
That's it.
But it's one of the tools in the coaching Calm in the Storm program. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, here we go. This is cool.
Yeah, while you're looking at that, I'm going
to share a screen to put it on.
Yeah, I think this is an important thing for us to sort of anchor on is this word cycle.
Yes.
Because what we're trying to do is, I gave you an example of a negative cycle spin I would get into that was very destructive.
Right.
This is how do you put something in place to move through the destructiveness potential that stress has to be able to move it into a productive environment.
Exactly. So whenever you have a stress, that's a worry, that's a fear, and we tend to just get overwhelmed with that and stay there. But if you can learn how to flip it to the goal, that's a good important step, but that's not sufficient, just identifying the positive opposite of it. If you don't recognize that you do have a habit of doubt, of thinking I can't when I don't know how, then you'll tend to stay stuck in that worry and can't. But if you can apply the proactive stress response and breathe, and relax, calm starts to come. You move away from the sense of stress. Then you have the capability of reassuring yourself and persisting in thinking about the goal. So now you've got this little dotted arrow across. Each one of these are little steps that you discover along the way. The first step doesn't get you there. And notice this one's got like about 20 steps implied. But when you take this step, you see things you didn't see from the previous step. Now you can move forward to identify the next step. And with that process comes clarity about the way, the path to the goal. That's where clarity is. But you still have to create it. You still have to implement it, to recreate, which also is pronounced recreate. So it could be fun. Recreation of your imagined goal achievement manifested in reality is a form of recreation.
Yeah.
It's a form of recreation.
Yeah,
and so this is one of the models in our Calm the Storm program. We got a bunch of them.
Yeah. So before we move, can you put that graphic back up, Rob?
Oh, sure.
Because I'm going to ask you to do something, and this is going to tell people that this wasn't planned. Because I want to go back. The thought just hit me, and
Okay.
You brought up the fact that you were given news that was a little stressful.
Oh, very.
And that
terrifying.
You were diagnosed whenever they were doing a procedure, and they
fourth
found,
stage non-surgical pancreatic cancer.
Yes, and
as bad as it gets.
Yeah, and when you were going through this cycle, you've had to apply this to your journey right now. Can you walk us through real
Sure.
quickly?
I was fortunate to have my mother with me when I got the diagnosis, because when we got in the car, she said, "Oh, this is just the latest life-threatening thing I've had to deal with you about." I went, "Wow, yeah, okay." So that shifted, all the life-threatening things that I've had. I love what Steven says based on one of Monty Python's movies of, "Are you dead yet?" Nope, not dead yet. So the goal was twofold. The goal was both dealing with all the things we all avoid about our death. Getting a will together, what's going to happen to a house, all that kind of jazz I've been avoiding and now I'm dealing with. So that's been a blessing. And the other thing is, what all do I need to learn, and what can I do to have the best outcome? Because there are people who have the best outcome. How do I get to be one of those? And my daughter sent me a wonderful book called Radical Remission, How to Survive Terminal Illness. And it had 9 things to do. And 8 of them are my superpowers: positive thinking, spiritual depth, etc. Exercise and diet, not so much. So I've had to work on those. But another blessing that's come out of this is, because I've lost weight that I needed to lose, that I was never really motivated to lose. I do not recommend this as the way to lose weight. But I got to get off my high blood pressure medicine. And that was good. So the doubt, the worry, the fear, that was there for about a week, just a week. And then, I know how to relax. I know how to breathe. I have practiced this for 50 years.
Yeah,
so that comes in
I want to
quickly.
I want to center. That's what made me think about this, is that you get the stressful news. The goal, of course, is to still be breathing in a month. I mean,
or 5 or 10 years.
5 or 10 years. I mean, that's the goal. But the next stage is a really important one. You had to punch your way through that. It's how much did you?
And repetitively.
Yeah.
So in that week, I would come out of the Terra, and then it would hit me again, and then I'd come out of the Terra, and then it would hit me again. Right. But the healing is not never having the negative thing happen. It's when it does happen, it doesn't last for as long, and there's more time in between the next time it happens.
Right. And there was a whole lot of "I don't know" at that
Oh, time. Yeah, because I didn't. I never dealt with anybody about it.
And then I can't. I've got worry. You've got all these things that you're wrestling in with it. You have had to intentionally break the auto response, to intentionally remind yourself in the middle of all this, I need to take a breath, take a step back, is what I call it.
Right, and there are tools and techniques for each one of those. It's not just like, okay, breathe. It's about
right.
How you do it.
There's some things to step into it, but it literally is, because we have a tendency, we're in the middle of battle, I want to go do something, right? And there's just as much value, just as much important to not do something is to take a step back, send yourself down, and then move forward.
Yeah, we tend to think doing nothing is doing nothing, but there is no possible thing called doing nothing. That's not possible. You're always doing something. Mm. So learning how to recognize where my mind is, what am I imagining, using my stress meter to indicate, what's going on. But having this process of breathing, relaxing, reassuring myself, thinking positive about the goal until I can get clarity on the steps I need to achieve the goal. And then go do it. And then do it again and do it again. And stress is always there to let me know, one, I'm resisting some change. Two, there's a change I need to make either in the world or myself. And the third definition is stress is evidence of not imagining a positive outcome.
Yeah. And there's a stage in here that's somewhere between persist, reassure, think positive, and clarity taking action. One of the things that you did is you chose to go out and create a Facebook page, okay, where you started sharing information about your journey.
And that was a stressful decision at first. It felt vulnerable. I didn't know if anyone would want to know. But I didn't feel comfortable just putting stuff on Facebook. So a cousin of mine did have cancer, survived, had a Facebook group, and I thought, okay, I could do that. And then who's ever in the group I would know was interested. And I've got hundreds of people following me. I mean, I can pause at any moment and just feel hundreds of hands blessing me. I mean, it's just been remarkable. And then you were telling me today about the blessing of the people who are participating in my sharing of my journey.
Very much so, because what happens is it's because of the way that you are, the mental attitude, the mental approach that you have, as we talked about. It's like you've chosen
I choose to have pancreatic cancer.
That's it. This is what you have. Not wishing you didn't. This is where you are, and you're taking steps, but you're surrounding yourself, and you're looking with people, and you're finding a group of people that you can be open with, who speak positively into you. And
I also got 2 oncologists, which most people don't. I have one at one facility, one at MD Anderson, and I meet with them and get their best advice, and then I decide what I think I want to do.
Yeah, I just wanted us to spend some time on this because this is a real life situation, real life circumstances.
And it works to have these models in your mind, because without them, we're just lost to our habits.
Yeah, I mean, you could take the same sort of process and apply it to Mike Staver, who's the National Speakers Association national president, who was speaking last week and was sharing what all of us in the speaking world experienced in March of 2020, when he comes in and within a 10-day period of time, 80% of his business, and it was a lot of business, 80% of his business literally disappeared. He was in a situation, it was kind of like the mental picture I had, those little tickers, those little countdown tickers. He's in his office with his team, and the tickers going just watching it. Just watching
I've had that happen many times over 50 years of being self-employed, which means I'm permanently unemployed.
That's it.
Always looking for work. And, I've used these ideas powerfully in all areas of my life of, when I've lost everything, okay, well, what's coming next?
Yeah. And so because that's our job as leaders, is to bring an atmosphere. One of the guys that I interviewed, I apologize, I would need to go grab his name again, but he had this phrase: the leaders need to control the weather. Leaders need to control the weather. And so it's like, there's a storm that's going on. Are you a catalyst that are causing us more, is turning it from, an event to a tsunami? Are you doing something to bring a sense of calmness? And you've done this study, and you've actually been working on building out a process that literally is called calm in the storm. And tell us a little bit about what you've learned through this process and what the key ingredients are in this.
Well, it's really what I've spent decades learning, because I don't like stress and I don't like conflict. And so I've developed tools for how to recognize it quicker and move through it faster and be more effective in producing desired results. And, I wanted to create this online program for a long time, but it just was so intimidating, just kind of overwhelmed by it. But circumstances just arranged themselves last year, both in time, energy, finances, resources, to put together this amazing program, calmingthestormprogram.com, which really makes available in very short periods of time, because we discovered that people think they don't have, that they have too much stress to learn about stress.
Yeah, and they have too much stress to learn about stress, and they don't have enough time.
Not enough time. And so, as speakers, we think we have to have a bunch of time to present ideas. And so what I did is I created a bunch of 3 to 5 minute videos with worksheets. If someone wants to go beyond just listening to the video or listening to the audio of the video while they're in traffic. Because I do a lot of work with physicians, and, the only time I can really put something into them is when they're in their car. Driving back and forth to the hospital.
In their mobile office.
Yeah, in their mobile office. So these are very convenient and easy to access and use. And we also got 16 CEUs for it, for CPAs, engineers, HSC professionals. We're working with Texas Medical Association about physicians and nurses, etc. So I'm very excited about that, to support people in something they already have to get, and to be able to take this in very short periods of time. And it really is about how to be more effective in any area of your life. I mean, we do kind of focus it towards work and corporations, but people hear, wow, this could help me at home.
Yeah, it's what I've learned when you're doing this kind of development work. For me, what I've learned is whatever I'm trying to do with my clients, it has more manifestation, more impact in my home with my wife and my daughter, because it's impacting how I interact with others.
And I don't think anyone's healthier at work than they are at home.
Mm-hmm.
And home is where our most important relationships are, which is also our most challenging.
Yeah.
They trigger us easier, harder, more. But that's where we can learn the most. When you learn, you have something to do with how you're feeling. When you learn that even in the storm, you could be calm even if everyone else is losing their cool. And as a leader, I think that's our job.
Yeah, what I love about this, when I first heard what you were building, it literally moves it away from concept into practical application, in bites that are steps. And that's my big thing. I believe in moving the ball. Take steps, because I know that in my journey, I've had to try something and not work, then take steps, or get a little bit better. Driving across that bridge from Lafayette to Baton Rouge.
Tell them what you did the last time.
The last time I'm driving across there, and I'm on the bridge about 10 minutes, I started reflecting back to 40 years ago when I had that, my first anxiety attack. And I took my hands off the I hope my wife doesn't like it. I took my hands off the steering wheel and just threw them up in the air. And there was an 18-wheeler right next to me. You could grab the wheel at any second, but you're experiencing something. I was experiencing freedom. I was experiencing healing. I was experiencing the result. Joy. But it was steps. I had to go through different stages. I had to learn. I had to put myself in.
It took years.
Yes.
From where you were to where you were then.
Yeah. And I had to go into a situation that was a small situation, learn how to control my response to it, think my way through it, and then go into another one, and then another one, and another one. And
so this isn't going to help people who haven't learned all this to deal with the most terrifying things, but it will help them move towards the ability to be able to do that better in the future.
Yeah, and here's the cool thing about this. I don't make this an infomercial, but I do want people to know there's a resource that's available to you, and that it's. I think that if somebody wants to look into this for 30 days, they can go play around with it. They can go and look at stuff. How does that
they
work?
can go to the preview of it.
Okay.
So if you go to the website and you click on preview, you get the first sample video of me telling the story about me getting shot in the center of my chest. But you also get an opportunity to take a quick assessment and have a customized report on your ability to be aware of stress and manage stress. Not about how much you have, but are you aware of it and are you able to manage it? And I think that's a very powerful tool and benefit of the program. And you can do that for free, and just go to preview and sign up for that.
Yeah.
And if you need CEUs, then you can pay for it, or your company can pay for it. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, they want to go through growth, make that investment in yourself, because as we wrap this up, Rob, there's four sort of levels of leadership, but one is I've got to be able to work on my relationship with you, who's my follower. But in order to do that, I got to understand more about how you're wired so that I could better interact with you, which will help me to be able to sort of control how I interact with you. So I got to learn how to manage myself. But the first step in all those things is self-awareness.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have to be aware of myself, and I love this assessment that you have in there. So anytime you can get feedback on how you're wired and what your conditionings are, and there's huge value in this.
Yeah, I mean, Goldsmith's emotional intelligence, awareness of self, managing self, awareness of others, managing others, and that's the sequence. It always starts with you. And I think what's interesting and easy for people to ultimately realize is that the more you know yourself, the more you know everybody else. And the more you're aware of your blind spots, which, by the way, are only blind to you. Everybody else sees them.
That's it.
So I might as well acknowledge it. The more empathy you have for others and their stress and their struggles and their challenges, and you can be a really powerful influence in making a difference in their personal and professional growth while you're producing results at work.
Yeah, so that's a great way for us to just put a cap on things, Rob, is that as leaders, we're charged, I believe, at helping others make a difference in the lives of those people who are part of their group. All right, that we're charged with having an impact on their lives. That's what leaders. That's when you step in the leadership role. We have to be willing to take that mantle on. And I want to thank you for sharing with us today.
Oh, what a blessing to be here.
You have impacted literally thousands of people with your walk.
Hundreds of thousands
of people. Okay.
Well, when you do it for 50 years, you can.
You can do that. But the key thing is that I know there's one person that you impacted a great deal. As I'm the man that I am today because of your walk, and I want to thank you for that. Thank you for that. Then, so if anybody wants to reach out to Rob, you can reach him. You can go to LinkedIn and look up.
Oh, well, let me make that real quick and easy. Just I've got another background on. Here's my LinkedIn QR code.
Oh, good. So you got a QR code there to pop that. Okay, but link up with him. Go to his website, play around, send him an email. We'll put his email in the show notes. If you're watching this thing, and to give him any feedback you'd like to.
And on my LinkedIn, there's also some videos. There's the TEDx talk I gave on balancing authority and collaboration. Goes more into that, the bookends of authority that I'd encourage people to take a look at.
Yeah, super. So, Rob, thank you very much, and for playing with us today.
Always fun, always a joy.
I love it. So just continue to go, and as I say, be extraordinary.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.